We are very close to the start of the Major League Baseball
Excited
season.
about that.
And one of the best from the mound, bringing the heat for OutKick.com, is Curt Schilling. And he joins us in studio here at 6th and Peabody. And you can catch the Curt Schilling Baseball Show launching this Friday and every Tuesday and Friday at OutKick.com. Curt, good to have you in, man. Hope things are well.
We searched long and hard for a name for the show, so the creative people went to work on that.
It works, though.
I do like that it says exactly what it is, right?
Yep,
I like a show that tells me exactly what I'm getting, and that's what it does.
And that's what I'm probably best known for, good and bad. You'll get what I think.
Well, I mean, the rules changes are top of mind. I'm sure you have thoughts on that for Friday's launch. Of the rules changes that we're going to see, which one do you believe helps the game the most?
I don't think any of them help the game.
Okay.
I really don't. I think the one that's kind of under the radar that's going to have a game-changing impact is the limited pickoff throws.
Because it's a stall tactic.
Well, but imagine Ricky Henderson at first base being told, okay, the pitcher can no longer pick off throw. He has to step off, disengage the mound to throw. I mean, like,
take off. Skills are up.
Well, what you end up doing as a base runner is you get what's called a one-way lead. When runners aren't going, good runners, they'll take a very long lead because they're always going back, so they're not going to get caught. You'll have runners after that second pickoff throw, and you'll have runners pushing the envelope to get those throws. And I just think it could end up being something that delays the game because now I can't make that third pickoff throw, so I'm going to step off the mound. Well, the pitch clock starts again. I got another 20 seconds. You know, those kind of it's gonna be interesting. And I don't really honestly believe that any of them. The shift, teams are just going to bring the opposite outfielder in as a fifth infielder. The opposite outfielder. You know, if you're shifting to the right from a left-handed pull hitter, you bring the left fielder in because hitters have proven they won't try and hit against the shift. But you might start seeing some hitters actually do that if an outfielder vacates a position to come in and play the infield.
There are always loopholes to even rules adjustments, right?
That's you find as a good manager, you find your personnel strengths and you play to them, right? And so when you have David Ortiz is a great example. David probably hits 15 to 20 points higher if the shift's illegal in his career, I think, because he hit into the shift all the time. And I always just said, if you take one game and bunt 4 times down the third baseline, they'll stop. You know, but that just doesn't happen. And you know, a guy that jumps to mind for now you're talking about versatility, right? If you've got a guy who in the outfield can play an infield position, he becomes a little bit more valuable on a limited roster. A guy like Dalton Varsho, who went to Toronto, can play all 3 outfield positions and catch and play around the infield. He becomes kind of like an NBA 6th man in a sense, where he's incredibly valuable for his ability to move around the field.
Curt Schilling in studio with us on OutKick 360.
So I heard or saw someone said the new bases look like huge pizza boxes out on the field. Most people would hear this say, why would you enlarge the bases? It's a safety issue is what they're going for, right? What do you make of this?
Well, if you wanted a safety issue, you'd do what fast pitch softball does, and you put an alternative base in foul territory that the runner uses and the hitter doesn't, or the first baseman doesn't. My problem is that when the game was made, it's mathematically perfect. The infield is mathematically perfect. 90 feet appears to be the space needed for 300 to be a Hall of Fame average. 60 feet, 6 inches, home plate to the mound. You know, if it's 60 feet, batting averages are drastically different. You give somebody 6 inches on a fastball at 95, it changes everything. I don't know that really – I don't think – I mean, you're talking about 6 foot average, 6 foot guys, 200 pounds, athletes. I don't know that that's even going to make any difference other than it's going to change. Think about it. What does everybody say? Game of inches. Inches matter on a baseball field. And so, that might have something. I just think it's going to look stupid, but I mean, it might have something to do. I don't know how that's going to change the game, if it will at all.
So if you're playing today, are you playing for the Mets based on the money being shelled out right now by their ownership? And is that, it's obviously good for players, driving up the market, driving up the price, but is it ultimately good for the game?
Well, I mean, the problem is, I think what you meant to say at the end there is it ultimately good for the business.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a good point.
$10 billion year business, right? Players are not loyal when they leave for a contract, but teams are apparently okay when they cut a guy for a contract. As a player, my owner's not going to pay me money he doesn't have. That's the way I always looked at it. They could solve all of the revenue issues if they pooled their money and split evenly. They won't do that, right? I mean, I was a player rep for many, many years, and in the 94 work stoppage, I was in negotiations. These are 30-some very greedy billionaires, which is fine. And you know, like anything else, you made the investment. Hey, you do what you want to do, but you better be ready for the ramifications of Peter Angelos destroying a once proud Baltimore franchise for no other reason. He just didn't feel like it's not like he didn't have the money. He didn't want to spend it. And, you know, a great fan base has been disenfranchised in Baltimore because of it. Now they're coming back, though, which is kind of nice to see.
How much easier do you believe it would be for you on the mound today compared to when you pitched?
Well, listen, I swore on a stack of Bibles I would not be that guy when I retired. I wouldn't be the guy like saying, oh, my God, if we made this kind of money when we played, because the money is in the stratosphere now. The game is different. The problem is pitchers aren't brought up like I was brought up anymore. You know, everybody wants to get on the pitchers for it's hard for me to watch when a starting pitcher tips his cap coming off the mound in the sixth inning. Like, that's embarrassing to me. But I was raised differently. I had almost 200 innings in the minor leagues in multiple seasons. I had almost 600 innings in the minor leagues before I got to the big leagues. They're raised differently now. When you put $5, $6, $7 million into a draft pick, it's not about his future. It's about this kid needs to get to the big leagues for our return on our investment. So they protect him. They have pitch count, and you know, the fine line between sabermetrics and old school baseball is straddled by very few guys. Teams are one way or the other. Most of them have gone very sabermetric oriented, which I think Tampa Bay learned a couple of years ago is going to lose you a World Series when they took Snell out in the seventh inning of a World Series game that they would have won. But at the same time, I don't think I've ever seen as much young talent in the game as there is right now. It's insane. I mean, the Padres, are you kidding me with that lineup? The Padres and Dodgers, and by the way, the Dodgers signed J.D. Martinez to be their DH. This is a 30, 40 home run guy that nobody's talking about in the middle of a monster. There's going to be some monster lineups, and I still believe Mike Trout's the best player anybody alive will ever see. Hopefully he stays healthy. Ohtani, no one's ever seen what he's doing. Nobody. And it's special. I mean, he's not just the ace of the staff. He's the best hitter on the team next to Trout, who's a Hall of Famer. He's a guy that's going to bust the $50 million barrier, I think, annually.
It's a shame they're playing where they are.
Well, but is it? They're in California. Isn't that a big market?
I would think, but
right.
I mean,
but it's so second place the Dodgers, as you know, in that market. I mean, it's a distant fourth almost.
But you go back to 2002 when they were in the World Series, it was packed. It was a great city. Cities become baseball cities when the teams win. Period.
I don't know how you have those two guys where Curt Schilling said the best player alive that I'm going to see alive is in Anaheim, and I don't watch him play.
And the most unique play. Yeah, and that's it, right? This is Vladimir Guerrero in Montreal.
Yeah.
Right? It's sad that you had to see Vladimir Guerrero's Hall of Fame speech and highlights to understand, oh, my God, he was a Hall of Fame player. Anaheim is that market, right?
And you've seen it also, Curt. I mean, you know, in Boston, obviously a huge market, huge baseball town always. In Philly, big baseball market, big market
and those
in general.
Markets, but those markets travel, too.
But Arizona, right? I mean, you talk about if you win, they'll come. I mean, that's a very young franchise. You win a World Series there, so you've seen it firsthand that when you start winning, anywhere can become a baseball town.
Well, I think, speaking of Arizona, you know, Florida's another one. I believe both Florida franchises are doomed. I mean, I hear Tampa talking about this. And the problem is, and it's always been this way, people in the Florida and Arizona markets aren't born and raised in Arizona and Florida. They're transplants. People move to Arizona and move to Florida from Chicago, from Boston, from New England, all the warm other states, and they bring their teams with them. Both states have spring training for all the clubs, so you don't have a homegrown Tampa Bay Ray, which is why I think Nashville would be an awesome place for the Marlins or the Rays to land. I think Vegas is going to end up with one of the franchises, but I think both those franchises need to go someplace else if they want to survive long-term and move up the pay scale ladder and get competitive.
So when you were on ESPN, I thought you were the best at baseball analysis while you were there. How much fun is it now for you to have this forum to talk about baseball twice a week during the season, spring training with OutKick, and be able to really get back to that and talking about exactly what you want to discuss within the game?
So Gary Schreiber is the guy that got me hooked onto this, and I've been kind of using him. I know, like most sports fans, I think I know everything about everything, and I'm way smarter than the head coach on Monday morning when I'm quarterbacking decisions. But baseball is the one thing I think I know as well as anybody alive. I've spent my life since I was 4 in it. I've gotten the distance between the game and I is something I didn't expect to have happen after I retired. And it's become, for a lot of different reasons, it's become bigger than I wanted. But it's the one thing I think I know. It's the one I know I can teach. I know I can and talk. I think one of my strengths as a color guy on baseball was I could explain things that fans would understand. Fans don't want to hear that Ohtani's got a 2.2 ERA on the road. They want to hear about the discussion on the mound. What's actually being said?
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10 it has nothing to do with baseball. I mean, listen, Scott Rowland in the Hall of Fame. My favorite Scott Rowland story is the fact that in old Joe Robbie Stadium where the Miami Dolphins were playing, on an off night, Scott Rowland was hanging off the upper deck by one arm and almost died. That's one of my favorite Scott Rowland stories.
And now I can't wait to hear this story on the Curt Schilling Baseball Show.
Short version of it, in 98, end of the season, we had a hurricane. And so they canceled the first 2 games of the series. So I bought $5,000 worth of paintball gear and a barbecue grill and steaks and took like 15 guys to Joe Robbie because the stadium's not going to blow down. And we spent the night there playing paintball. and he almost died. And it was tragic and awesome at the same time. So, yeah.
He's hanging up to avoid your paintball shot?
No, Paul Bird surprised him in the upper deck, and he fell and rolled off the top deck and was literally hanging off the top deck of Joe Robbie Stadium by one arm.
Best manager playing the game within the game. The mound visits, the strategy.
I'll tell you what.
Okay.
The guy that I played for that I think is the best game manager I've ever been around is Buck Showalter. I never saw him outmaneuvered as a manager. The matchup might not have worked, but he always had the right guy at the plate or the right guy on the mound when the game mattered the most. And I think early in his career, he got, like everybody else, he got a reputation that followed him that really wasn't true. Terry Francona, best people manager by a wide margin.
Ego-wise, you mean? Like
no,
managing the player?
Just managing the people. You cared about Terry. And I always say, when I played for guys, I played the game one way. And I played for a lot of managers. But I felt differently when I played the game and did something successful for a guy I cared about. Right? Tito's opinion of me mattered. So, in Johnny Padres, like my pitching coach, my first pitching coach, the guy who made my career, when he would tell me, hey, you threw the hell out of the ball tonight. Like, that was like, oh my God, like that was earth-shattering to me. You wanted their approval, guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when you work for people and work with people you care about, you take things differently away from the game. And Tito was a guy that could get you to buy all in.
And you were getting praised for going 6, like you're saying, or 9.
I wasn't. I was taught to go 9.
Yeah.
That's 27 outs. Those are your outs. And one of the things I learned, John, so many things I learned from Johnny. I'm being paid $10, $13, $15 million. I'm not being paid to pitch. I'm being paid to win. That's a very different mindset. A lot of guys are, hey, it's cool. I'm making a lot of money. I got to pitch. I hated losing so much that I swore to myself I would do whatever I could between a loss and the next start to never have it happen again. And so the game consumed me when I played.
Toughest out right now would be Trout, right? If you say he's the best player that I'm going to see live.
No. So I can't. I just forgot his name. The kid that the Minnesota traded him, the guy, the contact hitter who doesn't ever strike out. I can't remember his name. Guys that don't strike out were because I watch video. So, and I had hitters tell me, guys in our lineup are psyched out before the game starts because they know you've watched them hit more than they watch themselves hit. If you strike out 100 times, Aaron Judge, great example, great hitter, MVP and all that stuff. If you strike out 120 times, I'm going to find your holes and I'm going to throw my fastball there. And there's nothing you can do about it.
He's going to hate you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that was why. So guys like Tony Gwynn and Ichiro when I played, Billy Miller, guys that put the bat, I couldn't make them swing and miss. They were problems for me. So that was where I transitioned to becoming my own defensive coach in a sense, where I positioned my fielders. And you know, I remember Luis Gonzalez in Arizona. I told him, hey, I want you to play way in here, this on this guy in this way. Tony Gwynn, I want you to play in. And I brought my center, Steve Finley, over left center. And he said, what if he hits it over my head? I said, that's my fault. If I throw a pitch he hits over your head, then that's on me. But I'm going to throw the fastball down and away. He's going to hit a line drive to left, and I need you to be in this spot when he does it. And so, you know, and that was why when I lost, I took it personal. And a lot of guys didn't want to put that investment into it because then they became accountable. If I do all the preparation and I've done everything I can do to go out there and win and leave nothing to chance, and if I lose, it's my fault. Well, it is, and that's how it works.
Yeah, I think the assumption would be if you've made it to the top of your sport, you know, you hate to lose, that you're a competitor.
Yeah.
But I think it's evolved over the years. But, you know, when you were playing even, Curt, did you come across guys that you just couldn't understand? And you're probably more of an exception, but that you couldn't understand, like, hey, why are you not more angry that we've lost 7 straight?
Listen.
Or whatever's going on with the season.
And to some guys, for me, as a position player, I think that was a strength. Scott Rowland just wanted to show up and play and go home. And he showed up and played like Hall of Fame caliber third baseman and went home. And I remember guys like J.D. Drew. The knock on J.D. Drew was always, this guy doesn't, he went to Philadelphia or to Boston, and the fans were mad because he just didn't seem to care as much as they did. Well, no, that's just who he is. He wants to go hunting, and he can't wait to get his next tag. But in the meantime, he'll go 2 for 4 and have a 370 on-base percentage and do all the things. But you spend so much energy getting mad at a guy who doesn't get as emotional as you. And a lot of guys, for JD, that was his strength. There are other guys who they lie about it. They'll you know, oh, well, you know, I was 0 for 4, so what? You know, and you know, like nobody, the guys that tried to make it seem like baseball or the sport was, hey, this is not who I am. It doesn't define me. I'm way smarter and bigger and better. Well, you know what? Bullshit. The fact of the matter is when you're during your career, it does define you. Afterwards, be whatever you want. But when you're a player, and that's what you're known as.
No BS with the Curt Schilling Baseball Show. That's for sure. That's coming up Friday, the launch of it, OutKick.com. Every Tuesday and Friday is when it will drop. We're excited about this.
Thank you.
We love the name of it. We said this yesterday when we saw this.
We're baseball guys, so we'll be watching for sure. This is exciting.
Well, I'm excited to be a part of this team. This is a group of people that I think we're trying to grow something here and become, you know, dare I say it, become a bar stool. But focused on things that I think we're tailoring ourselves to the crowd that actually shows up at the game, right? I think a lot of sports are trying to do things to get a crowd of people to like them that don't actually buy tickets and come. And I think OutKick to me is focused on the stories that matter, that everybody's talking about. And
to actual sports fans.
It's
not to a mob.
Right. And we're okay taking on the why didn't these guys wear the gay pride jersey, or why are they having the, you know, this night at whatever. We're all right talking about that because I think at the end of the day, we don't take our work home with us. Just like I don't take my sports and never have taken them home with me.
Check it out this Friday, and really looking forward to it. Hopefully we can do this more often.
Absolutely.
As we dive into once the season gets going. Speaking of OutKick, we got Clay Travis coming up next.
I heard him. I know he has something to do with this.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Curt, good. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks,
man.
guys.
We
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Curt.